Revolvers, are they a viable defensive tool, or are they an antique that should be reserved just for range fun? Well, I think the best place to start is my personal experience. It must have been like 4 or 5. I can't remember. I was pretty young. But anyway, we were going to my uncle's house, and I remember leaning over the seat asking if I could stand on her lap and drive again, and, well, none of us wore seatbelts because only pot-smoking hippies wore seatbelts.
So we struggle in our own humble way to destroy the United States.
They were actually used as a punishment. If you had to put your seatbelt on, it's because you got in trouble, and the whole time your seatbelt was on, you got ridiculed that you had to be treated like a pot-smoking hippie. So anyway, I was distracting my aunt, who then pulled right out on a highway, and we got T-boned. The car was thrown like 25 yards. I'm pretty sure I even got ejected from the car because I didn't have my seatbelt on. I think we might have all got ejected from the car except for my aunt because she had her seatbelt on. But anyway, my brother, who wasn't born yet, was in my mom's stomach and wound up taking a head injury and basically lost almost 100%, well, I shouldn't say 100% of use, probably like 70% of the use on his right side body. Well, he wanted to buy a firearm, and so we started going through them, showing him the different options. I really tried pushing him into a semi-automatic platform. Now, typically, when somebody talks about home defense, I'll give him the merits of an AR-15, and if possible, sell him that. But he wanted a pistol. One of the few that he could actually rack was the Walter Creed. Now, he's left-handed, and his right hand has about as much dexterity as Captain Hook's hand, but he was able to rack this. So that wasn't a problem. Now, I know what you're saying, you know.
Teach your wife or your mom or your kid how to rack a slide. All they got to do is put the corner of the slide on the corner of a table and lean into it. They can do that all day long.
Yes, I seen the movie Operation Valkyrie as well.
We've been discovered.
So I totally understand that trick, but that's not where they have their problems. It's loading the magazines. Some people, like girls that don't have a lot of arm strength or people that have arthritis, stuff like that, I can get away with selling them a speed loader, and they're able to do it with that. But like my brother, on the other hand, where he basically has no mobility in this hand, he'd try to put on the speed loader, push it down, the magazine would shoot out, and basically it came to the fact that the only way he'd wind up practicing with the firearm is if somebody was there to load it for him, or like if he mailed me the magazines, I loaded them and then mailed them back. So he decided a semi-automatic option was not for him. He was, however, able to do a revolver. So he's left-handed, so it went something like this, because this hand he can barely move at all. He'd push the button like that, and then just like snake his hand through, then pick the rounds up, put them in, pull it off of his hand, and shut the cylinder. That he was able to do. Now you're probably like, well, what about the first hammer strike? Because when he shoots it, he'll typically cock the hammer. This has a range flag in it. Aim and then shoot one-handed. Sometimes he'll like put his arm under there if he can. But you're probably like, well, what about the first trigger strike? Because he's only got mobility on one side of his body, it's incredibly strong. Like, he murders me in arm wrestling every time. Don't get me wrong, that's his strong arm against my weak arm, and he only uses his strong arm. So yeah, the first strike, not a problem. He can do that all day long. Another option with these smaller guns that are harder to rack that sometimes works, sometimes it don't, depending on how the customer responds to it. You take this hand and you keep it stationary. You take this hand, so you grip, and you're going to push forward with this. Yeah, it does give you a mechanical advantage, and it does make it easier to rack, but you're missing the point of the problem. The point of the problem isn't necessarily the weight of the slide and how hard it is to rack. It's that the slide has so little surface area for them to grab onto. You'll typically see their hands slip off, or because this is counterintuitive, they want to pull this back instead of push this forward, they just can't do the technique. Another reason would be, what if size is an issue? This is allegedly the exact same size as a Glock 19. Well, it can get a little bit smaller. So if weight don't matter, but size does, that would be another point where a revolver would shine, because to get the size of a revolver, there's a couple of 9s out there, but pretty much you have to go with a 380. So you're looking at a substandard round. This is a 357 Magnum.
And so I want you to think about this. So they got a 6-shot revolver that then they have to reload, and 6 more shots, and then they have to reload. So there's 2 reloads to get you to 18 rounds, or you could get a Glock 17.
And a lot of people that go for revolvers, like girls or whatever, they don't actually intend on using them. They want, one, to be able to completely function the firearm by themselves, because nobody likes to have their hand held when they're doing tasks. 2, they want decent power. 3, they want it easy to use. With a semi-automatic, for whatever reason, they always want a safety on it. This doesn't have a safety, you just pull the trigger. Or if you want to make an accurate shot, you cock the hammer back. It's easy to load. Again, like, I get the whole, well, you just stick a mag in a semi-auto and you rack it, but I'm talking about actually getting the rounds into the magazine. A revolver is far superior. The next selling point with that would be long-term storage. Now, I actually got this little tidbit of information from Lucky Gunner, and I think it's got merit. With a semi-auto, alright, so I was trying to find facts on this to make sure that what he's saying is actually true, and I was on a prepper website, and they were saying with ammunition, when you store them for a long period of time, the powder inside it will start to sweat, so you got to put a bunch of decan or something in there to absorb that out, otherwise your ammunition goes nasty. I've never stored ammunition for a long time, so I don't know how much fact is behind that, so that's just me gathering internet information. I don't know. But anyway, so say your ammunition turned nasty on a semi-auto, it's got to be able to slide out of the magazine, which would be tough to do with ammunition, go up a feed ramp, and then it's still got to be the right diameter to fit in the chamber. A revolver, the round is already chambered. All that's got to happen is you got to get ignition on the primer. Say for whatever reason it doesn't happen, then you just try again. And typically, I don't mean to stereotype, but when a girl talks about a self-defense weapon, she'll shoot it, but not nearly as much as we do. Because we shoot our firearms all the time, it is ideal to get a semi-automatic. It's always going to have new ammunition in it. It's always going to be cycling through those rounds. But with a revolver, where it might be sitting for a couple of years, maybe 10 years without ever being shot, if that was a semi-auto, it's probably not going to feed. Yes, clearing a jam is far easier on a semi-auto. If something goes wrong with a revolver, like, say the nose of the bullet goes forward and it jams a cylinder, or for whatever reason it has a malfunction, chances are you're going to have to take this to a shop and have it fixed. Semi-autos, super easy to clear malfunctions. But the point is they're probably going to have that same ammo and that same firearm for years. In a semi-auto, it's probably not going to work. Especially because if they're that unlikely to shoot, they probably don't even have a round in the chamber. So then they got to get that first round chambered, which may or may not happen. With a revolver, they're already good to go. They can just pull the trigger. But anyway, that's my thoughts on all this. If you'd like to help support the channel, feel free to click my Patreon link. That would be pretty cool. But thank you for watching. Leave in the comments below what you think about all this. Don't forget to subscribe.